Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying reality in modern cybersecurity. We're breaking down the dual-loopback implant architecture. Now, if you follow this space, you know how advanced persistent threats, or APTs, operate. But this is a maneuver that literally takes your machine's inherent trust and weaponizes it, turning your own endpoint into an invisible, inescapable prison. Let's get into it.
Imagine, for a second, looking into a cyberspace mirror. You open up your browser, type in a URL, and everything appears perfectly normal. The pages load, the icons spin, but the reality? You are completely cut off from the actual internet. Your machine isn't talking to the outside world at all. It's communicating with a localized, malicious shadow of itself. You aren't just fighting a standard virus here. You are fighting a system built entirely around you, designed specifically to ensure you never, ever leave your own digital cage.
All right, let's start with part one, the loopback hook. So we all know standard operating systems are hardwired to blindly trust the local host address, right? That's 127.0.0.1 for IPv4 or 001 for IPv6. It's built for internal inter-process communication, just your machine talking to itself. But because this trust is so absolute and unquestioned, it creates the absolute perfect blind spot for host-based security tools. It's a massive vulnerability hiding in plain sight. That brings us to Section 2, hijacking the resolver stack. Let's map out this architectural shift, because this is where the magic, or the nightmare, happens. In your standard flow, an application asks the OS resolver for an IP, and it securely queries your enterprise infrastructure. Simple. But in the malicious flow, the OS resolver stack is totally subverted. Instead of querying your secure network, your traffic hits a local man-in-the-middle daemon sitting right there on your machine. Your own endpoint effectively becomes a rogue recursive resolver. And here's the kicker. Because all this routing happens entirely on the loopback, the attack is what we call perimeter blind. Those multi-million-dollar enterprise firewalls and upstream DNS filters you set up, they're completely useless here because they never even see the raw queries. All they see is generic encapsulated outbound traffic, maybe some DNS over HTTPS or WebSocket transport. The implant operates entirely within the local shadow of your OS, hijacking trust well before a single packet ever hits the wire. Moving right along to Section 3, infiltration mechanics. So, how do they keep this grip on your system? To maintain persistence, the malware actually rewrites your core network configurations. On Windows, it digs deep into the TCP/IP parameters to modify the nameserver and DHCP nameserver registry strings. Over on macOS, it goes after the system configuration framework, hooking into the config daemon and SC preferences APIs. The goal is simple. Even if you totally reset your Wi-Fi interface, localhost immediately locks back in as your primary DNS. But here's where it gets really smart. Once they're embedded, they don't just indiscriminately block everything. That would be way too obvious. Instead, the malicious daemon uses application layer enforcement logic. It acts like a highly intelligent traffic cop, selectively routing, spoofing, or dropping traffic based on a very specific internal target list. Think about how targeted this is. Antivirus updates, the daemon hits them with an NX domain injection, basically telling your system, hey, that update server doesn't exist. Your EDR telemetry gets a timeout injection, causing the security agent to just hang and fail to report anything. Meanwhile, if you try to hit a banking portal, the A record is instantly spoofed to an attacker-controlled proxy. And to ensure your system doesn't catch on to the lie, the implant strips DNSSEC-DO flags and triggers fake serve failstorms. It literally forces your client into an insecure fallback state or total communication failure. Which leads us to Section 4, and honestly one of the most brilliant parts of this architecture, the mystery of 127.0.0.2. You really have to ask yourself, if the adversary already owns 127.0.0.1 and is using it for full-blown DNS hijacking, why bother opening up a whole new logical namespace on 127.0.0.2? I mean, why split the operation? The answer boils down to logical namespace separation and pure evasion. Historically, most EDR tools are hard-coded to keep a close eye only on 127.0.0.1. So, by binding specific malicious functions to 127.0.0.2, the attackers basically create an invisible playground. It easily evades simple socket monitoring and completely prevents any clashes between their DNS hijack engine and their other malicious tools. And what exactly are they hiding over on 127.0.0.2, a pseudo-mail transfer agent? utilizing kernel-level redirection via the Windows filtering platform, specifically targeting layers like ALE, Off-Connect, FI4, and Stream4. The implant transparently routes your outbound mail on ports 25, 465, and 587 straight to this local malicious server. They scan your recipients, block emails going to security teams, and actively suppress alerts. They are quite literally cutting the alarm wires before the signal ever leaves the building. Okay, on to our final section, Part 5, Evading Forensic Detection. How does a setup this massive avoid being spotted by incident responders? Through intense process masquerading. The attackers will hollow out completely trusted, signed OS processes like SVOst or Spoolsy and use them to house their malicious listeners. To a casual observer just glancing at the task manager, the system state looks perfectly healthy. But if you did a deep memory forensic scan, you'd find unbacked read-execute memory and manually mapped executable pages. It's a terrifying malicious reality hiding right inside a completely legitimate shell. In some of the absolute most advanced and frankly audacious cases, they take a living off-the-land approach. Rather than building their own custom proxy, they just hijack the existing local proxies of your legitimate antivirus software. Think about a Norton service or an SSL filter. They inject their malicious traffic right into those existing secure tunnels. Because the OS fundamentally trusts the AV, the malware ironically turns your own protective shields into the very walls of your digital cage. And if you try to go digging for the evidence, good luck. They employ heavy anti-forensic techniques. They hook Userland APIs to ensure 127.0.0.2 never even shows up in your netstat logs. They use safe boot persistence to survive even in minimal recovery environments. They manipulate timestamps, which we call time stomping, and they leverage those same hijacked legitimate utilities to trigger massive log wipes. They are actively burning the evidence of their activity right as you get close to finding it. The true danger of the dual loopback architecture isn't just about what data it steals. The real terror is that it controls the very environment and the exact tools that a defender relies upon to see the truth. When your antivirus, your DNS resolution, and your system logs are all part of the manipulation, you are completely boxed in. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. We really have to fundamentally rethink endpoint forensics and cybersecurity as a whole. Because let's face it, a multi-million-dollar enterprise perimeter is absolutely useless if the local network stack on the endpoint is already functioning as an invisible cage. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious, stay paranoid, and remember to always question what your system is telling you.